As we head into the second half of 2026, the biggest question right now is what's going to happen to the Duterte dynasty? From a new impeachment complaint against the vice president to new efforts by the Duterte skeptic forces to hold the powerful dynasty accountable. And of course, from ongoing efforts to make sure that there's a grand coalition to prevent the return of Dutertes, ang dami nangyayari sa ating bansa. In one way or another, the Dutertes are still a central theme of Philippine politics, whether you like them or not. But how powerful really is the Duterte dynasty? What is their staying power? Are they more vulnerable than ever? Will Sara Duterte be the next president? Will she even continue to run for the presidency if the ongoing investigations expose supposed weaknesses and anomalies in her conduct throughout the years? What is the future of Philippine politics, particularly the showdown not only between the Marcoses and Dutertes, but also how the so-called pink movement and progressives will position themselves ahead of the 2028 race? Who are the potential candidates of the pink and progressive movement? Could there even be a grand coalition against the Dutertes, or are we going to see another open field? To discuss this important, in many ways existential issues for Philippine democracy, we have a very special guest. Maraming salamat, Senator. I know you're still recovering from lahat tayo. May mga lagnat tayo ngayon.
Salamat,
But Senator, of course, on this show, we had you see Claire Castro. We have a couple of people from different sides of the government kung saan pinag-usapan namin itong mga latest responses ng ating gobyerno, including ating presidente sa mga pangyayari sa gitnang silangan. As we speak, of course, we're in the middle of a ceasefire, like 4-week ceasefire. Let's see where this goes. But Senator, let me begin with world chaos before we go to Philippine chaos, right? Kasi marami tayong pag-usapan sa impeachment, sa elections. Pero dito muna tayo, Senator, because the last time we had a conversation together, yung Venezuela yung pinag-usapan natin. Ngayon naman, Iran war. Obviously, this seems like a very different war from that one. This time, mukhang talagang medyo matindi yung kalaban at both sides were forced into a ceasefire. Before going to the strategic implications of that, gusto ko lang malaman, ano yung basa nyo dun sa sinabi ng ating Pangulo, dun sa interview sa Bloomberg? Actually, I was also on Bloomberg asking the people who also interviewed the President, parang off the cuff ba yan yung sinabi ni Pangulong Marcos na bukas siya na makipag-usap sa China ukol sa mga disputed resources dyan sa West Philippine Sea. What do you think the President had in mind? Was he just saying that he was frustrated or was he being nice kasi asin chairman siya this year?
I think it's a confluence of all these factors that you mentioned. I think ang bottom line dito is the President is open to anything para lang ma-alleviate yung paghihirap or yung rising costs and everything, no? Just to contain the crisis. So that openness is a good thing, but kailangan ng caution, okay? Kasi hindi naman basta-basta But I think what he did earlier, I think the earliest sa the rest of the
Yung
world.
energy emergency.
Yes, he declared an emergency. Kumbaga, being ahead of the whole thing para proactive na yung government institutions sa ganong mindset. So, I think that helped a lot dun sa pag-absorb ng crisis na yan.
So for you, it was just a signaling na gagawin namin lahat ng mga kailangan para lang stable yung energy markets natin. But obviously, alam naman natin, pagdating sa issue ng joint development, joint exploration, even joint seismic undertaking, mga ilang taon nang pinag-usapan dito. So hindi ito makakatulong necessarily doon sa short to medium term energy shock na nakakuha natin sa Strait of Hormuz closure and Iran crisis. But actually, to scratch this a little bit more, ano bang pinag-usapan natin dito? Kasi it was never clear. Ano bang, Reed Bank ba? Malampaya ba? Service contract ba? Joint development ba? Kasi the devil is in the details. What is your read? And Senator, you know something about this because you were part of very sensitive backdoor negotiations back in the day in 2012. So, familiar ka dito sa mga pinag-aawayan natin dito?
So, okay. Kaya I think yung na-mention ni Presidente doon sa interview na yun is more of that policy intention to being open to anything to solve the crisis, or at least manage it. But yun nga, going to your question, dalawa kasi yan. Merong undisputed territories at yung disputed. Yung undisputed, let's say yung dito sa Pacific side, wala naman nagko-contest dyan. if there is an oil deposit somewhere there, the Philippines can communicate with any country na kung gusto natin uh, ma-explore yon.
Yun.
Kasi we don't have the technology, the
Yung offshore
know-how.
drilling,
Yeah. So lalo na yung deep sea drilling,
Yeah.
mabigat yon. So pero prerogative natin yon as the undisputed sovereign owner of that. Ngayon yung dun sa disputed territory, yung sinasabi nilang donut hole doon, it has been established early on. Now, wala siyang commercially viable deposits in that area.
So not big enough to
Not big
be
enough.
worth the investments and all. Yeah.
Yes. So that was established early on. I think it's just some misinformed personalities na who keep on insisting na meron doon. Okay. Kaya dito sa periphery, yan, let's say Malampaya, undisputed yan. Yan marami dyan. Sa Brunei, sa
Yeah.
Malaysia, yun sa kanila.
At ate yan, hindi claim ng China
Oo.
yan. Yeah.
Ganun din doon sa other ASEAN countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei. Doon sa area nila, that's outside the donut hole na sinasabi. So mga undisputed areas yun. But doon sa disputed, unfortunately, walang deposits doon that is commercially viable for an exploration. So yun yung
So,
find out natin.
if ever makipag-ugnayan tayo sa China, obviously we're talking about CNPC, CNOOC, Sinopec, ito yung mga big energy companies nila. Potential ito yung sa loob ng ating exclusive economic zone na wala ng claim ng China.
Yes.
So service contract basically, like something we did with Shell sa
Yeah,
Malampaya.
So, we've done that before. Meron ng diyan, mga templates for joint exploration, not with countries but with
Companies, yeah.
with companies.
Yeah.
So, I don't see any problem with that per se.
And that's why siguro yung mga senador natin who are known for their tough stance sa West Philippine Sea, katulad ng yung Senator Lacson, Senator Soto, all of them have shown that they're supportive of this. I think it's in that context. But we're talking about long term. Balikan natin yung isa pang statement ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. about yung kailangan natin i-restructure yung ating relasyon sa mga higanteng bansa kasama dyan ng China. So, Senator, where do you see that restructuring, if ever? Is it valid?
Okay. I think kaya na-float yan, yung restructuring na yan. Because nakita natin yung vulnerability natin as a country with that crisis sa Middle East. Tayo yung worst hit for some reason na naiwan tayo sa lahat. We were not even consulted dun sa mga desisyon na yan. And hindi naman na kailangan tayong konsultahin. But precisely because of our position in the world, our place in the world na middle or lower middle country tayo, kaya we need to fend for ourselves at some point. So at least dun sa energy dependence, kailangan natin ma-solve yan.
Which brings us, of course, to renewable energy, among others. I mean, one of the things na nakita natin, Senator, over the past decade is sobrang mura na yung mga solar panels, yung front investments na yung bumaba. I mean, let's be honest, China is a big factor in this. Where do you see us going in terms of renewable energy? Because nakita natin Pakistan, Vietnam, many of these countries na heavily affected, they immediately shifted to renewable and they're quite successful.
I think dun sa next administration, talagang it should be one of
Yeah.
the priorities. So it's a policy shift now. Yung renewable energy, whether solar, wind, or tidal, marami ng technology available at na siya, affordable. Kaso lang, walang nag-i-invest because there is no incentive for investment and there is no trust sa government to that. Kaya yun dapat, kailangan magkaroon tayo ng major policy shift away from the fossil fuel energy para ito na, kung magkaroon man ng crisis in the future and it's more likely to happen, at least hindi tayo ganong tatamaan.
Yun nga, I mean, wala tayong certainty kung ano mangyari sa Strait of Hormuz, kung magkakaroon ng toll fees, kung magkakaroon ng giyera ulit, God forbid. So I think President Trump basically has opened a can of worms. We don't know really where this is going to go from here. Na-normalize masyado itong military interventions, unfortunately, in that region. But yeah,
Let me just add,
Please.
Richard, just envision this. If you provide incentives for electric vehicles and putting up solar panels of your own, imagine if a family, a middle
Yeah.
class family, can now be totally be free,
Self-sufficient. Yeah.
yeah, of anything that happens in the Middle East in the future. So it's just something to look forward to, and it would require a major policy shift for the
So,
government.
but I mean, obviously, you need feed-in tariffs among other technical
Yes.
issues na we can discuss separately. But the oil deregulation, the energy sector privatization deregulation, kailangan ba natin balikan yan, Senator? Because a lot of people have been scratching their head. What's going on here? Kasi there are lots of studies showing that actually yung buffer natin at yung exposure natin is not as bad as many of other emerging markets, mid-sized countries you
Yeah.
mentioned. Pero tayong second highest surge in petrol diesel price, and parang ang bilis tumaas yung presyo, pero ang bagal bumaba. So I think even ordinary folks na hindi kailangan ng energy sector experts are wondering what's going on with this energy deregulation. Did we go too far in deregulating our energy markets?
I think yun lang naman dapat. Nung trend na yun, nung 90s, yun dapat eh. Kasi remember, when it was nationalized, grabe yung corruption.
Yeah.
So, naging ito eh, kumbaga cash cow ng mga corrupt
Cronies. Oo.
cronies. So, kaya nga diniregulate kasi sinasabi nila the private sector is more efficient in running these things. So okay, doon na tayo. But meron ding profiteers dito sa private
Right.
sector na kailangan din i-rein in. So that's one thing. But the policy per se is not at fault in this case. Pero kailangan natin habulin yung mga profiteering. Pero ang pwede nating i-tweak sa policy dito is pwede nating palakihan yung reserves natin. Sabihin mo nang it's a 6-month
Strategic
reserve.
stockpile, parang
Yes,
yan, strategic energy reserves.
Then
yeah.
you can provide in fact a tax credit or incentive dun sa mga oil companies who would do so. Para 6 months may buffer ka. But again, ano lang ito? Supposed to be interim.
Yeah.
If you're going to shift eventually sa renewable, yung dependence mo doon, mababawasan na mababawasan. So I think we can do all of these things simultaneously para ma-absorb yung next crisis na
I remember back in the other Marcos administration, actually, isa tayo sa mga pinaka-diversified energy-based countries, di ba? Yung hydro natin, and then later on, of course, in the Ilocos region, we have the windmills. At kumpara dati, ang mura na ngayon yung mga solar panels, all of these renewable energies are super good. So, what are the partners you have in mind? I mean, obviously, China is the number one in the world, pero Denmark is a big, big player. There are many other, Spain is another major country na malaki dito. Meron ba tayong mga strategic partners na siguro pwede natin kausapin dito sa issue na yan?
Let's explore everybody because
Right.
they're willing to
Invest.
to invest eh. And we didn't even mention the waste to energy technology.
Alright,
So,
yeah.
yan, that's going to be a big help dito sa Metro Manila. So, marami niyan. In fact, yung bago ito, yung tidal energy,
Yeah.
bagong technology, we can put up something dun sa San Bernardino
Oh.
Strait. 'Di ba? Para kasi ano 'yun eh.
Dami energy. Pag low tide, high tide, you can generate a lot of energy out of that. Yeah.
Any movement
Yes.
sa is transformed into
Convertible,
energy.
yeah.
So marami na. Kaso kailangan lang bigyan ng priority ng gobyerno para mabigyan ng incentive yung hindi lang yung mga malalaking companies but even individuals from putting up their own renewable energy.
Absolutely. May mga nakita kong mga may mga villages sa Germany na completely 100%. Tapos export pa sila. Even in Denmark, 'di ba? Parang they even export it kasi oversupply na eh. And I think people don't understand yung solar, hindi ibig sabihin pag may sun lang gumagana. Actually, may storage capacity yan. Mura na ngayon ng lithium battery compared to before. May transmission. So, pwede mo ibenta kung may extra. I think people understand renewable. Kung may araw lang, meron ka energy. Or kung may hangin lang, wala na tayo doon. We're way advanced. We're way more advanced. But the other thing I want to also ask, Senator, before we go to domestic politics is, in one of our conversations earlier, ang pinag-usapan natin Venezuela.
Yes.
And doon nakita natin, yung awesomeness of American military power. Talagang, wow, ano nangyari? I watched so many videos about ano kayong mga weapons na ginamit nila. But all of us kind of warned, and I'm on the record, na ibang usapan pag medyo malalaking bansa katulad ng Iran ang pinag-usapan dito. And here on this Iran conflict, some would say, for a moment, put aside the ideological frame, no? Both Ukraine and Iran, pretty middle-sized countries, both of them were seen na no chance against superpowers, and yet both of them held their line, some more successfully than others. Hindi kaya ang lesson dito sa atin is, pag magbubuli ang China sa atin, if they want to use a military solution, we can do to China what the Ukrainians and Iranians have been doing to far more capable and battle-tested militaries. I mean, Russian military is battle-tested. The US military is battle-tested. When was the last time China fought a war? 1979? Talo pa nga sila sa Vietnam, di ba?
Sa Vietnam.
So, actually, the lesson is good for us, isn't it? The middle-sized countries, we can say to China, gusto mo mapayarin kayo, you think there's a military solution? Go and try it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Maraming military technology na nakikita natin dito sa
Drones.
Ukraine tsaka sa Iran. But na pwede natin simulan na ngayon dito sa kasi kaya yun yung pag-develop nitong drone, itong drone warfare na ito, bago ito kaya natin yan. Ngayon, yung parallelism lang natin doon sa Venezuela and Iran, I think nagkaroon ng na-overlook siguro ng the decision makers. Nakakala nila, by taking out the leader, would translate to a regime change. They were able to do that easily sa Venezuela. And initially, dito sa Iran war, nagawa nila, napatay nila sa Khamenei. Kaso, the assumption failed nung suddenly may pumapalit and isasip rin.
Immediately nag-respond. 14 countries na tinarget nila. Yeah.
Na hindi nila nakita yon. Kumaga, I think it's the fault of, ultimately, it's
decision maker.
Yeah, the decision makers. Kasi, for sure, hindi nagkulang dito yung mga
military parameters.
Yung intelligence, the military leadership, because nagwa-war gaming yan sila If we do this, anong reaction? If we do this, so I am sure lahat yan na layout nila yan. But the fact that they went ahead anyway, and they in fact faced yung sinasabi na mangyari, it's now the fault of those who made the decision.
Yeah, so, wishful thinking on the part. I mean, the fact that a lot of generals were fired during these operations, right, tells you na hindi necessarily nag-agree yung civilian leadership at saka yung military experts who know what was going to happen on the ground. But like yung population lang natin, mas malaki sa Iran and Ukraine combined. I mean, just to give you a sense of size, kasi may manarinig tayo, wow, well, Ukraine, Iran, mga warrior nations yan, may industrial base. True, but may Japan tayong allies. Taiwan is there, they're going to be concerned. South Korea is a good partner of ours. Australia is there. Do you think there's a bigger good lesson for us larger countries? I mean, with all due respect to Venezuela, Venezuela is a small-sized country relatively, and they're just right next to the U.S., which gave them a lot of. But tayo medyo mas komplikadong operations if China wants to have a military solution, right?
I think more than us learning a lesson from this, it's the big countries learning a lesson from these wars in Ukraine. It means that yung invasion is totally undoable right now in this age. So China is not going to invade anybody in the Philippines, for example. They can win a military standoff somewhere, but they cannot go beyond that. Unless they want to use their nuclear weapons against a country like us and run the risk of being a pariah for the rest of or even triggering World War III.
Nuclear response.
So I think that's the lesson learned right now. You don't go there. You can do the initial obliteration of military capacity. But then that's how far you go. You have at some point to negotiate or hope that a new regime, which is much friendlier, would kowtow to your demands.
We heard from some Taiwanese experts saying that what we saw is that decapitation has its limits. Kasi, for instance, in the case of Iran, they had the mosaic defense strategy whereby pag tinira mo yung command center, yung mga regional commanders, meron na may pre-given coordinates of action. Bahala na kayo dyan. That's why Iran was very effective in responding right away, even after the initial attacks. pwede kaya natin gawin din sa Pilipinas yan, whereby even if tatargetin mo yung I mean, I know
Yeah.
this is grim, but let's be realistic. We're just telling to people na actually kung China ka, ayaw mo mangyarahin ng Pilipinas. Whereby the regional commanders all across the Philippines, meron silang pre-given coordinates, how to resist, how to respond, just in case matarget ang Manila in a
Yeah.
kinetic warfare.
So these tactics can be adapted, but ultimately it's the resilience of the people being conquered.
Right.
Kasi kung yung spirit nila will not be broken, they will adapt. At nangyari na to nung World War II, di ba, with
Yeah.
Japan. Overwhelming din yung power nila noon. But then, nag-adjust. Lumaban yung mga guerrillas. And,
Yeah.
di ba, eventually, na ano sila, natalo. So, ganun yun. It's the story sa bawat conquered nation, whether it's Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, Ukraine. It's the resilience of the people that will determine the fate of their country.
Right. And yun nga, I think because of the asymmetric warfare developments, hybrid warfare, yung chance for attrition, yung cost for attrition is much lower. No?
Yeah.
Even if may conventional superiority yung kabila.
Yung asymmetric warfare na yan, it's just a new term, but early on, it's
Guerrilla
guerrilla
warfare.
warfare.
Yeah.
It's
Ginagawa
basic.
natin yan.
Ginagawa
Tayong
na
inventor, di ba?
Yeah.
We were the world leaders in these
Oo.
things.
So, and nakita nung US yan sa Iraq pa lang. Di ba? Na pinapasabugan sila ng IED.
Yeah.
Hindi nila alam. Every time sila lumalabas, they get casualties. So, until hindi na kinayanan ng political leadership nila, they had to pull out. So, ganun din. Sa Vietnam, ganun din nangyari.
Right.
So, may mga bagong tactics, may bagong technology, but it's still the same. Once nakapag-adapt na, at yung resolve hindi na basag, they will fight back.
I think you could say in some ways na baka sila General Luna yung talagang inventor nito, di ba? That was his original plan. Except he got assassinated. Di ba yung plan niya is pupunta sa Cordilleras and then wage asymmetric warfare.
Yeah.
So for those who are a bit history geeks, makikita nila yung Philippine footprint, yung experience of US of colonization of the Philippines, our Huk Rebellion against the Japanese, the General Luna plan. So how confident you feel about our national resilience? And that's the question. I mean, you have been dito sa West Philippine Sea issue when you were a junior senator back in the day. You were right in the middle of the diplomacy, and then you became a senior senator. Now you're a statesman in many ways. Anong basa nyo dito in terms of how far we have come dun sa ating national resiliency and whole of nation approach dito sa mga threats na hinaharap natin sa West Philippine Sea?
I think we've gone a long way, no? Yung consciousness ng Pilipino, even yung mga bata dun sa West Philippine Sea issue, talagang nag-increase yan tenfold. At makita mo, pagka lumalabas yon, solid kahit papano yung except for some chinators. It's unfortunate.
Neologism.
But mahirap ibenta eh. They can try, no? Yung mga troll sila dito, they can try, but ultimately yun ang default eh. Untenable yun. So maganda yung naging offshoot nitong de-democratize nung West Philippine Sea issue.
Correct.
So naging nagagrasp ng ordinary Filipino.
Actually, I was wondering, dun sa tatlong non-Western powers, Iran, Russia, and China, napansin ko, magaling sa meme at misinformation campaign ng mga Russians, obviously, because of the KGB experience. But the Iranians also proved very successful, right? Para basically, tinitroll nilang US route this, the whole Lego series and all. But for some reason, and I noticed that even when I was in Taiwan, China is not as good sa misinformation, disinformation, at least compared sa Russia and all. Or for some reason, yung mga kanilang proxies dito, hindi sila funny, wala silang, parang sablay eh. Bakit sa tingin mo medyo parang pumapalpak yung misinformation campaign nila dito?
I think it's a culture thing because
right.
Everywhere in the world there is a Chinatown, for example. So there is a stereotype, and they keep to themselves. They don't intermarry normally. They marry within their within their race. So it's not very subtle. So when they do disinformation, it's not subtle.
Parang na-reinforce yung xenophobia,
Yes,
stereotypes,
xenophobia.
unfortunate stereotypes
Yeah,
about the community.
unfortunately. So, I think yun yung nangyayari, no? Kasi yung Russia, what they did was talagang
Mainstream
pinasok nila
culture,
yung
mainstream culture.
psyche ng American culture. Kaya nagamit nila yon yung culture wars within the US. So far, and hopefully, hindi na ma-develop yung ganyang capacity naman ng China.
Kaya nga binabantayan namin pag yung mga singers, mga artista, ganun, bigla, wait, parang naging expert bigla sa on-clause. Medyo suspicious yan. Because the Chinese are very good Chinese Communist Party, very good sa disinformation in the Chinese-speaking world. In Taiwan, pinag-aralan namin yan back in the day when I was a visiting scholar. Effective sila. Pero sabi nila, pag tinetranslate sa ibang kultura or Anglophone culture, whether Australia, Philippines, even medyo nahihirapan daw sila. So I wonder what's going on there. Ako naman siguro, dahil they're not good in choosing their proxies, maybe. They don't have the best people in
well, siguro, that's one thing. But they tried during the time of Duterte. Grabe yung soft power nila. They sent military officers, media personalities, academe sa China.
Yeah.
But they just came in, they enjoyed the sights, they enjoyed the food. And when they went back, the biases remained. So it wasn't broken, unfortunately.
Or rather, their I would say vigilance remained. Hindi sila na disarmed. Because I'll be honest, as someone who's visited China a lot in past, they're very hospitable. Yung red carpet treatment na makuha mo kahit pichugin ka lang na academic. You won't get any of that in the West, right? Baka tubig lang bibigay sa this. So really, they overwhelm you with hospitality and all. But for some reason, we know that some of our media friends, some of our friends, even the academy, host and all. But for some reason, hindi siya nag-resonate. Which is a good news. But nevertheless, dapat hindi tayo complacent, right? Because Digong, in a way, was very helpful to China. Because ang point ni Digong was, you don't need to love them. We just need to be practical. Di ba yung pragmatism, yung argument ni Digong, which I felt was very dangerously effective to a certain degree. Except China never delivered the pragmatics. Walang investments, walang tulong na large scale. Can we go back to that? Kasi yun ang worry ko parating, maging practical tayo para. Yung ganun. That mindset for me is worrying. Yun ang pwede weaponize.
Yes, I totally agree. But in the case of Duterte, his use of being practical is just a pretext because he was compromised from the very start.
Manchurian?
Manchurian? Yes, definitely. But in the case, let's say, of President Aquino, he didn't close his relationship with China. He just allowed the normal course of the relationship to flourish. If there are investors, there are tourists, they just do their thing, and it's allowed to happen. Vietnam treats China that way.
Yeah.
We will guard our territory, what is ours, but we will deal with you extensively if it's beneficial for us. So that's how it should be approached.
So there is engagement, but the red lines are clear.
Yes.
But that also means you develop your capabilities because the average Vietnamese has very strong opinion about not compromising with China, di ba? Minsan mas extreme pa yung population kaysa yung government, di ba? We saw that in 2014 during yung massive anti-China protests amid yung tension sa East Sea, South China Sea areas. This is a perfect segue sa domestic politics natin. Speaking of the other Duterte, because, Senator, everywhere I go around the world, tuwan-tuwa sila sa Pilipinas. Transparency Initiative. Tuwan-tuwa sila sa mga government officials, thought leaders, people like you, going out, speaking out. Kasi hindi nila nakikita sa ibang bansa sa Southeast Asia yan. Parang tayong pinaka-vociferous, enthusiastic, articulate defenders of a rules-based order. But always the question is, but what if Duterte naman yung next president yun, saan tayo pupunta? And then they watch videos of Sara Duterte speaking in, I don't know if you can call that Mandarin, whatever she was doing. Mm-hmm. They see that and say, baka na naman ang Pilipinas, magre-revert na naman dun sa Duterte days. Before even answering those people, how worried should we be about the power of the Duterte dynasties, their staying power, and their potential return to Malacanang? Nasaan tayo ngayon, especially with the impeachment trial discussions now?
Okay, let's start off by saying that we should all be very, very worried
Right.
that it's an existential issue as far as our democracy is concerned. We have seen Duterte Part 1, Duterte 2.0 under Sara Duterte. Could be worse
Because
because of the temperament of Sara Duterte.
worse than her father?
I personally believe that well, they're the same. Sara Duterte is basically Digong without the sense of humor and a shorter fuse. So
And not the coordinates of...
Yes.
I mean, in fairness, kay Digong, I
Yeah.
mean, magaling siya. I mean, he could talk about many
Yeah.
things kahit di I agree. Oh.
and I believe Sara Duterte has psychological issues. And being mentally unstable, if you give presidential
Power.
powers to such a person, then that's a sure formula for an abuse of authority and power. Now, there would be oppression. There would be institutions that would be demolished
Hmm.
because it will experience her wrath.
Vengeance, yeah.
Vengeance. So, let's not even contemplate a possibility that it could be any good for our country.
Gusto kong balikan yan because one of the counter-argument, I don't know kung nagko-cope, yung cope mechanism. Nagko-cope yung may ibang tao sabi, but you know, si Sara, hindi katulad ng dad niya when she was mayor of Davao, more ano daw, consultative, experts, may times na I mean, I heard this from friends in Davao when I was in Davao, na parang kumpara sa dad niya, she's more modern in terms of governance. The other thing I hear is that, but you know, people around her, she has a lot of smart people, she'll bring a lot of smart people kasi hindi, katulad ni Digong, she knows her limitations. Si Digong kasi feeling niya kaya na lahat or he would like impose his ego and will. Ito, medyo may insecurity or ito may ano. So, alam niya limitasyon. So, she'll be actually more reliant on real experts. So, wag niyo na tinignan yung surface. And then, of course, Senator, I mean, I always get worried about this. Is toxic masculinity kayo dahil lang, ano yan, misogynist lang kayo, ina-attack niyo yan. And I said, no, we can talk about all Dutertes if you want. Hindi ito. What do you say to those people na parang ganun ng rhetoric na it won't be as bad? Even Americans, I heard, I won't name names. These are like in the think tank court, sabi nila, oh, she did naman IVLP, yung International Visitor Leadership Program. She's not like her dad. She's internationalized. She goes to the US. Ganun. Hindi ka... So wala siyang yung mga trauma sa US. Maglalaro yan. What do you tell to those people, Senator?
Okay.
Because I keep on hearing that nowadays.
They have the same profile with Xi Jinping and with Kim Jong-un. That they would be better. So it turns out they're not accurate in that regard. So in this case, as a political insider, we have to do better than the regular outside observer. We need to profile. We need to get inside information.
Yeah.
Now, what's the inside information we're getting now? That Sara is not even talking to the
Digong.
older the
Davao boys,
Davao group of
Yeah.
Digong. She doesn't have her own circle of experts that they're talking about. In fact, it's the opposite. She doesn't have the tolerance or the patience for anybody because she's mercurial. One moment she's happy, and 5 minutes after, yes. So that's going to be a problem, and it is a problem right now within their camp.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing for us right now who are planning to make sure that she doesn't be in power, whether in 2028 or beyond. And that's one thing. One thing about the Dutertes is this. One thing going for them is their age. They are relatively young.
The new generation.
Yes,
no?
so they may lose out in 2028, but 2034, they could bounce back. So this should be a perpetual vigilance to make sure that they won't be in power forever.
Marathon to.
Yes, yes.
Wow. Now, this is also important because ang tinitignan ng maraming, and I know you have strong views on this, ang tinitignan ng maraming observers, not only international, pero pati yung mga local na you would assume are more informed. Tignan mo lahat ng surveys. Almost 40% si Sara Duterte. Twice or even 3 times higher than the second highest, right? Including some of our colleagues here in TV5 who are being put in the surveys and who may or may not run. What do you say about that? Kasi parang prohibitive frontrunner, yung ganun yung framing sa kanya.
I think ito, yan yung problema natin dito sa mga pollsters natin. If you look at polling, let's say, sa US or any developed country, sa US, for example, they don't have a poll na lahat ng Democratic hopefuls would be in a survey with all the Republican hopefuls. It's a scenario wherein there is one Democratic candidate against one Republican candidate. Because that scenario wherein all of them are running at the same time is non-existent. But in the Philippines, it's prevalent. Sana yung media, tapos yung commercial pollsters, na yung chop suey survey na ando doon lahat yung pangalan.
Right.
Hindi naman mangyayari na tatakbo si Bam, Lenny, and Risa at the same time.
No, that won't.
'Di ba? Ganon din si Bongo, Robin,
Sara.
Sara, hindi rin mangyayari 'yon. Pero they keep on doing it just the same. Tapos hindi ngayon natin nakikita. Kailangan naman ng konting political intelligence dito. Meaning, tingnan nyo sino ba yung mga interesado. Those who are not interested, tanggalin nyo na dito, di ba? Or kung gusto mo ng senaryo, you put up a three-way race na ito yung mga personalities. Ngayon ito naman, hypothetically ito, para talagang you're trying to replicate an election day scenario.
Realistic scenarios.
Yeah. Kaya hindi nila nakikita. And ngayon, siyempre, yung mga prospective donors, nakatingin sila dun sa chop suey survey mo eh. Ngayon, unfair dun sa mga hindi nag-pick up doon precisely because hindi naman sila magsasabay. But let's say, in this case ni Lenny, ngayon, ang sinasabi niya, hindi siya tatakbo. Di ba? Can you put a scenario na tanggalin mo siya sa survey mo? Ano ngayon ang mangyayari sa numbers? Let's say ni Bam o Risa.
Yeah.
Di ba? Ngayon, si Bam at saka Risa, hindi rin nang tatakbo ng pareho ng sabay.
Isa lang sa kanila.
Isa lang. So, kailangan mo talagang gumawa ng mga scenarios. I know there are privately
commissioned version of that.
Yes. So,
not commercially available. Not publicly available.
Yes,
one.
but the problem is the media is always putting up the chop suey survey. At yun ngayon yung lumalas, ay malakas si ganito, ay mahina si ganito. Pero hindi mo alam na malakas siya, pero ang ceiling lang niya, ganyan. Remember, si Digong, dun sa chop suey surveys, noong 2015, he never rose beyond 2%. Pero nung tumakbo na siya, immediately nag-jump kagad yung numbers niya.
Kasi ang dami hindi tumakbo.
So kung if you're judging the strength of a candidate through that chop suey survey, then hindi mo talaga makikita yung potential ni Digong noong time na yun. So, I think yun ang problema natin sa polling
it's
natin.
A good analogy, Senator, yung sinasabi na parang ang nangyari dito is yung Republican candidate na na-consolidate lahat ng Republican versus like 10 Democrats. Parang ganun eh.
Yeah.
Siyempre, maging chop suey yung survey. But of course, the difference in the US is that there's a party system, there's a primaries bago ka pumunta sa consolidated Democratic candidate and consolidated Republican candidate. So, anong proseso natin ng consolidation? Because, Senator, I'll put you a little bit on the spot here because one of the concerns I hear from some people who have the interests of the country in mind, they don't want the worst people to be in charge of Malacanang. Parang, di ba, you're all in the same lake, not in the same boat. Yeah. But parang nag-away-away kayo. I mean, you saw, I made my efforts. I mean, I know where everyone is coming from. But sa tingin nyo, Senator, isn't it more constructive if there are like rules of engagement about how we should choose between Bam, Risa, Lenny, or even Kiko, or whoever is going to be in that mix, diba? Kasi parang ngayon medyo hindi lang chop suey yung surveys. Ngayon parang medyo may pagkabardagulan or parang medyo open season eh. And minsan medyo intense din yung back and forth between, let's say, supporter of Lenny, supporter of Risa, and we know your stance on this issue. But looking at the big picture, kung zoom out tayo, because you said, basically your implication here is, you cannot make 10 people run against Sara. That plays into the hands of Duterte, who have a much more consolidated base. At the end of the day, you have to choose really one person to run against them. What could be the rules of engagement, if I can use that term, or modus vivendi, kung saan pwede mag-disagree, but at the end of the day, you understand you're all part of the same universe, or at least in the same lake.
Okay, let me start off by saying there is no disagreement. No, there is no disagreement. At the end of the day, alam namin lahat na isa lang ang kandidato.
Okay.
Okay. So, pero wala pa tayo kasi doon eh. Kumbaga nasa primary season pa lang tayo.
Pre-primary.
Na pinupush yung
Yeah.
kung sino gusto mo. Ngayon, let me just go to that comparison. Sa Republicans or Democrats, 'di ba may primary sila? Marami nagfo-float. Very bitter pa yan eh.
Yeah.
Yung labanan yan, 'di ba? Yung kila Bernie
Sanders and
sila
Hillary Clinton. Yeah.
Talagang grabe yung
Oo.
bakbakan nila. Pero nung nagkapilian na dun sa primary,
Support
everybody
na.
united.
Yeah.
Ganon din naman yung mangyari dito. Pero gusto ko lang i-point out yon na meron kasing magagaling sa primary pero sa general election, hindi. Di ba yun yung consideration ng mga strategies ng US politics?
Parang nag-appeal ka sa base pero hindi sa median voter and independence.
Oo, but kaya yun ang inaano nila na tipong mananalo ito pero for sure talo ito sa general election. Ganon yung play nila. Ganon din dito nangyari sa atin. Ako, I feel si Lenny is going to be good dun sa base pero sa general election, baka kakapusin siya. Just like noong 2022. Because she doesn't start early. Yun naman yun. We concede that. So, by starting late, hindi mo na ma-develop yung mga yung machinery mo, yung LGU network mo.
Na nagawa ng Dutertes already.
Ngayon,
exactly.
ginikutan lang, sinesemento na nila kung sinong kandida. Ito wala. Nobody's even starting dun sa kampo niya. So, pero, ang default ng mga kakampings, for example, is si Lenny. So, malakas sa base, pero sa general election, doon ulit magsisimula late. Okay, paano ba? Paano tayo mag-start?
Yeah.
Because you didn't start early, hindi mo alam sino yung mga coordinators mo sa bawat probinsya sa Pilipinas, bawat munisipyo.
Yung ground war.
At nakita namin yan noong 2022 na hindi pwede yung social media, parang, craze na, okay to.
Yeah.
Okay yun kung overwhelmingly popular ka in the case ni Pinoy at ni Digong noong 2016. Pero yung sa kanya, popular siya sa base eh. Pero yung Ilocanos and the Mindanaoans, the Visayans are not going to be excited once mag-declare si Lenny because we've seen
you
that
have to
before.
win them over.
You have to win them over. Ngayon, kailangan mo talagang mag-establish. Ngayon, noong 2022, nakita namin, wala nga kami madapuan anything north of Pangasinan. Wala nang point person doon, walang kandidato sa La Union, walang kandidato sa Nueva Vizcaya pataas.
Sa Baguio, yeah.
You're conceding a huge part of the voting population that way. Why? Because they started early. She started late.
Yeah.
And she's doing the same thing. And pagdating nila, ang formula nila, nakita ko kasi yung the people around Lenny. Ang formula nila is just a PR campaign.
Yeah.
It's a social media campaign. Yun lang, yung mga picture na masakay ng bus, mga ganun lang yung Wala
but sorry, I wanna
serious.
push on that. Like, how are we even sure of course, God forbid, but how are we even sure that elections will be a safe elections? I mean, stakes are very high, right?
Yeah.
You need security, right?
Yeah.
You need machinery. So you mentioned mo yung ground war. Para sa akin, you need everything. You need protection, security, kasi this is going to be probably even more high stakes than 2022. For me, it is more high stakes than 2022. So, can you just remind people bakit hindi pwede idaan ito sa enthusiasm, sa sharing a certain color lang at the 11th minute? No, ito ground war na ito, all-out war na ito.
Okay, I totally agree, Richard, and it's good na ni-remind mo yan. Kasi in 2028, it will involve lives and freedoms of people in power and those who would lose,
Yeah.
di ba? So, pagka, let's say, the Dutertes, then you have an opposition candidate or kung sino man yung kandidatong mananalo, alam nila na pag nanalo yung kandidato na yun, diretso sila sa kulungan. Wala na magpo-protect sa kanila. Di ba? Then you have geopolitics at play.
Yeah.
You have Taiwan on the table. So may US, China, proxy. Lahat ito, mabigat yung stakes. And therefore, talagang very, very dangerous yung campaign na mangyayari in the coming months. Hindi ito parang John McCain na
Yeah.
yung
Mga disente, yung
sports,
ganun.
wala na yun. Ito, iba ito. The Dutertes, everything on the table yan.
Yeah, all in.
All in yan. Hindi lahat ng dirty tactics, lethal, non-lethal tactics are on the table.
But it's
the
understandable, right?
Dutertes.
I mean, Digong will most likely spend the rest of his life dyan sa Hague.
Yeah.
2 other senators close to him. One of them is still MIA.
Yeah.
I don't know kung may balita kay Bato. Please don't blame me for saying may nakita ako. Wala akong. I just said, kinonfirm ko what everyone knows. And you have been on the record since last year saying, not only predicting the Duterte arrest, but actually also the Bongo and Bato one, right? So, hindi lang ito si Sara, hindi lang ito Duterte dynasty, di ba? It's this whole universe of these figures, influential figures, who are gonna lose out big if hindi makabalik ang Dutertes.
Well, yun na nga, no? That's what's at stake sa mga Dutertes. Sa Marcoses, on the other hand, or at least the President Marcos's family, ang at stake sa kanya,
It's all existential din, yeah.
ganun yan. Hahabulin talaga din siya.
Vengeance,
Diba?
yeah.
So, ganun ito ganun yung sinimula ng mga Dutertes, yung vengeance politics Diba? Parang
Yeah.
mafia ito. Kaya, yun. Kaya hindi rin ideal yung passive masyado yung kandidato mo. Na tipong pagka matalo, okay lang ako kasi wala naman at stake sa akin. I can just go
I'm good
to
with
Naga.
everyone.
I'm good with everyone. Diba? I'll run again for Naga. I'm okay, I'm safe. Hindi pwedeng ganun. Dapat we should share the same sense of urgency. Kung
Existential
kung
threat,
nakita
yeah.
nating dangers of a Duterte presidency, dapat ganun din yung nakikita ng magiging kandidato natin. That way, marirealize nila, kailangan nila mag-start early, kailangan natin mag-reach out,
Yeah.
kung sino-sino, kailangan natin mag-forge ng coalition with the administration in order to win or guarantee a win.
Yeah.
So, marami yun. Yun yung lalabas na difference between a passive candidate
Yeah.
and somebody who has recognized the dangers of a potential Duterte resurgence.
And this is the last part I want to discuss with you, Senator. So, yes, may understanding na isa sa kanilang tatakbo. What about yung understanding na kailangan na may grand coalition eventually? Because I think all the surveys show pag nagsama yung pink base and the base of the Marcoses and administration, that's a formidable, almost sure win na yan, right? Especially if I don't know about our colleagues Tulfos, if any of them run, but if any of them endorses the president or even positions for that, yung combined force will be, even for Duterte, is quite formidable. And obviously, that comes with the package of machinery, protection, and everything. Nasaan na tayo sa discussion niyan? Because as we speak, Senator, just to complicate this a bit, we know that supporters of Senator Risa are already on the move, trying to put the pieces together. My understanding is that supporters of Senator Baum, who also did very well in 2025, who some see also has a broad range of support potentially, or ideally, is also kind of in the mix, Senator. So how could potentially all of these pieces come together if Lenny indeed is not really interested? Because I've heard from some people who know her, which is, wag din naman pressure si ma'am. Baka naman, she really, genuinely, maybe she really is not sure if she wants to run. And maybe it's time for us to look at Risa, at Bam, at Kiko and other people. So how do you put that part and then the grand coalition picture together? The VP should be from admin? I mean, what are we looking at here, Senator?
Okay, I believe if the middle forces have agreed to forge a coalition with
Middle meaning pro-democracy, pro-West Philippine Sea.
Anti-Duterte.
Yeah, okay.
So, all of this, because it's not only the campaigns, because you also have the people who voted for Manny Pacquiao, Isko,
Right.
and all the others. So, if the middle forces are going to forge a coalition with the administration, I believe it's a non-negotiable position that the candidate should come from the middle forces. And the admin would be the vice presidential candidate. That I believe that's the only that's the starting
Formula,
point.
yun yung formula.
That's the starting point. Now, the thing with let's say with Lenny, for example, I don't think she sees the danger of a Duterte presidency, and that's the reason why she's nonchalant about the whole thing. She's just focusing on her privates or on her.
Well, she's a mayor of a town.
Yes.
I guess she has to take care of that. Yeah.
But if she's going to rule out any scenario that she will run eventually,
She has to be clear.
she has to be definitive.
Yeah.
Because BAM will not grow and RISA as well. She would have to be definitive. And the fact that she's not definitive leads me to conclude that she is interested. But
On
she
her
will-
terms.
On her terms. But she won't lift a finger preparing for it. Okay, so that aside. Senator Risa, I know her for a fact that she recognizes the dangers that I've been talking about. And she's willing to do what is necessary para manalo
Middle forces.
yung middle forces sa 2028 at hindi manalo yung Sara forces. So that's one. Now, kay Bam Aquino, ito ang primary obstacle sa kanya. It's the Aquino-Marcos rivalry. I think that alone would prevent him from being part of any coalition with the administration. So yun yung...
Aren't you underestimating Bam's ability to navigate? I mean, he's quite a successful politician. He was campaign manager of Lenny twice.
Yeah.
One of them was very successful. The other one was quite competitive. I mean, what if Bam is willing to go transcendental?
No, we're talking about Bam as a candidate.
Yeah.
Bam as a candidate, he is still an Aquino. And he is going to be surrounded by Aquinos.
For anti-Marcos people.
Yes. And we heard it already from Kiko D that he's not going to allow any
Grand coalition.
coalition with the Marcoses. So, wala pa tayong it's just being floated. So, that effectively rules out BAM as part of that coalition. Maraming hihila sa kanya palayo doon. So, yun. Ngayon, as for Lenny, when would you even talk? Next year? So, wait and see ka muna doon. So, yun yung nakikita ko dito.
And that's why you feel more comfortable with one of the three persons we
Yeah.
mentioned here. I mean,
Okay.
just to be transparent about
Yeah.
this.
And I think si Senator Risas earned it. Hindi lang yung qualifications niya, but what she has done for the country.
Literally against mafia.
Yes,
Literally against
Oo.
mafia,
So,
yeah.
kumbaga, if we're looking at the 2028 presidency as a wartime presidency,
Yeah.
kailangan natin talaga yung tumitindig. Hindi pwede yung passive, yung ano ba ito? Hindi mo nga nakikita sa mga issues.
No room for ambiguity.
No room for ambiguity.
Yeah.
Tapos, baka mamaya doon natin malalaman magfo-fold eh. Kasi hindi mo naman nakita tumindig. Kung nasalang na sa crucible, yun pala, kakapusin. So, that's the thing. Part ito ng
But
check
Senator,
out.
as we said, like feeling ko election pa lang crucible na eh. I don't
Yeah.
think some people want
I
to
agree.
lose that election. So I think that the tumindig opportunity or a challenge will be there immediately bago ka pa umupo sa Malacanang. So I
Yes.
think people have to understand it's not going to be a normal elections, no?
Yeah.
The stakes are existential. At least for us, we see it as existential sa ating demokrasya, but for some of the dynasties, it's also existential for them. Senator, thank you so much. We went from World War III to mafia politics. Ang dami natin cover, and that's why we're very, very thankful to you, Senator, for joining us. Thank you so much, Senator. And looking forward to continuing this conversation. Hopefully, wala naman mga extra gulo abroad para mag-focus tayo dito sa Pilipinas. Catch us again next week here on One News. You can also check out the long conversation on Spotify and YouTube. I'm Richard Heydarion, and that was The View from Manila. We're One News, all sides, all the time.